We've all seen a cemetery. That quiet, solemn landscape of stone and grass. But what if I told you that in major cities all over the world, they're officially running out of room for the dead? For centuries, we've promised our loved ones a final resting place, a small piece of earth to call their own, forever. But what happens when we can't keep that promise anymore? What happens when we physically, completely run out of space? The answer is forcing us to fundamentally change how we say goodbye. And some of the solutions are as shocking as they are revolutionary. Number 1, the looming crisis. It might sound like the plot of a dystopian movie, but this is the reality for many of the world's most crowded cities. Urban centers across North America, Europe, and Asia are facing a critical shortage of burial space. Places like London, New York, and even the hallowed ground of Arlington National Cemetery are projected to run out of room for new burials sometime in the 2040s. The problem is a simple, unavoidable equation. On one side, you have relentless urban expansion. As cities grow, land becomes a priceless commodity that gets prioritized for the living, for housing, businesses, and infrastructure. On the other side, you have a consistently high number of deaths. The United Nations projects the number of annual global deaths will continue to climb, likely reaching into the low 80 millions by the late 2040s. Historically, when a town cemetery filled up, a new one was simply opened on the outskirts. But in today's megacities, the outskirts are already developed. There's just nowhere left to expand. This has created an equity crisis. In some cities, the cost of a burial plot has skyrocketed, turning a final resting place into a luxury item available only to the wealthy. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the situation is so dire that city officials have even considered repurposing closed-down public schools as new cemeteries. And for many cultures and religions, like Judaism and Islam, where burial is a mandatory rite, this isn't just a logistical problem, it's a spiritual one. When there's no more land, where do you turn? For some, the answer lies not in finding new ground, but in reusing the old. Number 2, the shocking solution, grave recycling. This might sound horrifying to some, but reusing graves isn't new at all. In fact, it's been a common solution across many cultures for thousands of years, especially in Europe. During the Middle Ages, it was routine for gravediggers to exhume old bones to make way for new burials, placing the older remains in communal bone houses or ossuaries. The famous catacombs of Paris are a massive testament to this exact practice. Today, this concept has been modernized and systemized, often called grave recycling or renewable tenure. Instead of buying a plot forever, families lease it for a set period, often ranging from 15 to 50 years. After the lease expires, if the family doesn't renew it, the cemetery has the right to reclaim the space. One of the most common methods is known as lift and deepen. It's exactly what it sounds like. The original remains are carefully exhumed, the grave is dug deeper, and that first set of remains is reinterred at the bottom. The newly created space above can then be used for another burial. In some cases, multiple family members can be buried in the same plot over generations, stacked vertically. In London, for example, some burial authorities have been granted special powers to reclaim and reuse certain private graves that are over 75 years old. It's a pragmatic, if controversial, approach that is common in parts of continental Europe and some UK boroughs, though it's far from universal. The logic, as researchers have pointed out, is that while visitation patterns vary widely, many graves see the most frequent visits in the first decade or so. A 75-year waiting period is seen as a respectful compromise. Of course, the idea of disturbing a loved one's final resting place is deeply unsettling for many, and the practice faces significant cultural and religious opposition. In places like the United States and the United Kingdom, the cultural ideal of a grave being an eternal, undisturbed space is deeply ingrained. This clash between tradition and necessity is at the heart of the debate. But as land becomes ever more scarce, what was once unthinkable is now becoming a necessary conversation. But what if the solution isn't to make more room in the ground, but to bypass the ground altogether? We're about to explore the radical new technologies changing the face of death. If you want to keep exploring the future with us, Take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 3. The radical new world of burial. The space crisis has ignited a wave of innovation, leading to entirely new ways of thinking about the end of life that are greener, more efficient, and in some cases, sound like something out of science fiction. The most well-known alternative is, of course, cremation. It solves the space problem, but it comes with its own environmental baggage. The process is energy-intensive, and a single cremation releases significant amounts of carbon dioxide and other pollutants, like mercury from dental fillings. It's worth noting, however, that regulations in some regions are successfully working to reduce some of these emissions. But now, new methods are emerging that challenge both traditional burial and cremation. First, there's the alkaline hydrolysis, also known as water cremation or aquamation. Instead of fire, this process uses a solution of 95% water and 5% alkali, combined with heat and pressure to speed up natural decomposition. Over several hours, the body breaks down into its basic chemical components, leaving only bone fragments and astral liquid. This liquid, which contains amino acids, salts, and sugars, is safe enough to be returned to the ecosystem through the wastewater system. The bone fragments are processed into a fine ash, similar to flame cremation, and can be given to the family. Proponents say it's a gentler process that uses just a fraction of the energy of fire cremation and produces no direct greenhouse gas emissions. Next up are green burials. This is less about high-tech solutions and more about getting back to nature. A green burial avoids all the artificial trappings of a modern funeral. There's no embalming with toxic chemicals, no concrete vaults, and no metal caskets. The body is placed in a simple biodegradable shroud or a pine or wicker casket and buried in a shallow grave. This allows it to decompose naturally and become part of the earth again. These natural burial sites often double as conservation areas, preserving green space and supporting local ecosystems. It's a final act of giving back to the planet. But perhaps the most revolutionary, and for some, the most challenging, new method is natural organic reduction, or as it's more commonly known, human composting. This process transforms a human body into nutrient-rich soil. The body is placed in a reusable vessel with organic materials like wood chips, alfalfa, and straw. Over several weeks, naturally occurring microbes do their work, breaking everything down and creating about a cubic yard of healthy soil. This soil can then be returned to the family to be used in a garden or to plant a tree, creating a living memorial. First legalized in Washington state in 2019, human composting is now legally available in over a dozen U.S. states, including New York, California, and Arizona. It's being championed as a profoundly ecological choice, one that avoids the carbon footprint of cremation and the land use of traditional burial, and instead turns death into an act of creation. And the innovation doesn't stop there. Some envision a future of vertical cemeteries, skyscrapers for the dead, in dense cities, while others are developing digital memorials and AI-powered holograms, allowing us to interact with a virtual version of our ancestors. For all of human history, we've marked our existence with a final, physical place on this earth. But we are now at a turning point. The quiet fields of stone that have defined our landscapes of grief for centuries are a luxury we are running out of. The problem of full cemeteries is forcing a global reckoning with our most deeply held traditions. It's pushing us to choose between the eternal resting place we've always imagined and the needs of a growing living world. From the controversial recycling of graves in London to the quiet soil-making vessels in Washington, the way we say goodbye is undergoing a profound transformation. The future of death won't be a single solution, but a spectrum of choices shaped by culture, religion, and a pressing need for space. We are all being asked to reconsider what it means to honor our dead and what legacy we want to leave behind, not just in memory, but in the very land we all share. So the question for all of us is, as these new ways of departing become our reality, how will we choose to say our final goodbye? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for watching.